Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned in to a live version of me talking about iOS 13, the first public beta. I'm talking about this, coincidentally, the day that Jony Ive is basically officially no longer going to be at Apple. I do believe they're still going to maintain some kind of relationship. It's going to get complicated. I'm sure that's how their Facebook status is going to be updated in a matter of hours, if it isn't already. I do not plan on doing a ton of iOS videos or iPhone videos, honestly. This isn't like Star Wars to me. Just wrapped up another Star Wars Radar Live broadcast with Jedi. We found out what BB-8 tasted like. Spoiler alert, he's fruity. Not real fruit, just sugary. I see the orange tongue. That's the BB-8. I tasted BB-8. A slightly more interesting topic, I think, than iOS 13 Beta 1. I mean, not just Beta 1, the public Beta 1. Now, here's the thing, and I'm going to lay this out flat on the table in front of you. You've probably watched how many videos about iOS 13 to this point? Just take a guess. Give me a rough number. How many iOS 13 public beta 1 videos have you watched? 1, 2, 27? I'm going to save you some time. They're all the same. Everybody tends to say the same thing. Maybe they say it differently, different wording, but they all talk about the same stuff. So if you've seen one, you've probably seen them all, which is probably going to disappoint you, because I'm not really going to talk like the other people will talk about iOS 13 Beta 1, maybe even the departure of Jony Ive. It's no secret that I have not been a fan of Jony Ive's flavor of iOS ever since the first beta of iOS 7. I was concerned. And I remain concerned, or shall I say I remained concerned, maybe until today. Not necessarily just with the release of iOS 13 Beta 1, but Jony Ive. I'd sit here and say he will be missed, and I think in the grand scheme of things, yes. But this is my opinion. I gotta lay this flat out. And by the way, thank you for the super chats there. I saw a couple of them come in. VT Productions PC, thank you. And iPro, thank you. Many of you know I work for Intel. Right now I'm helping Intel Graphics build their community. And, any opinions that I might share are my opinions, 100% my own, not that of my employer. Of course, if my employer shares the opinions, great. But I doubt it. So I have to say it, because it's disclosure. It's the right thing to say. This is my personal perspective. I've never hid it. A lot of people know what it is I think about software. And really what drives my motivations in terms of a lot of the choices that I happen to make for myself. And that's exactly it. So it's my opinion. These are my choices. You're entitled to your own. Have at it. So with every release of iOS, after 6, really, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, now we're at 13, 7 versions later, and I've been told that, it's getting better. Don't worry, it'll get better. It's improving. I haven't believed it. I have not personally felt it, seen it, and then of course you all know how I feel about, what do they call them? The cutout, the notch thing, whatever. This massive speed bump in usability. You know how I feel about that. Those feelings haven't changed, not in the slightest. There's no reversal here. I looked at iOS 13 at a distance and thought, all right, well, maybe this is something that'll work this time around. And so I was, of course, anticipating trying the first beta, knowing full well that the first beta, especially with iOS, And I'm not going to install a beta of Mac OS. I have no want, need, or desire to do that. Knowing full well that it's going to be buggy. But also being concerned that it wouldn't really be better than what I had seen before. So, one of the issues that was raised with iOS in respect to performance was its scheduler. And it was postulated that this is possibly why performance seemed to take a hit, no matter how you were running iOS. On a faster, or newer iOS device or an older one, it would always seem to run the same way in terms of the same speed. Could have been related to the scheduler. By the way, thank you for the super chat there, Christian. When I saw the announcements, iOS 13, there was a scheduler, and I think the exact quote was, improved kernel thread scheduler. So the fact that they improved it at such a low level, as far as iOS goes, I was cautiously optimistic. So I loaded iOS 13 onto my iPhone 8 Plus, the latest one that I have, the latest one that I currently want. And of course, launched it and swiped. This is the thing that made me fall in love. You may remember with the iPhone back in the day, the first iPhone. It was swiping to the right, swipe in the weather app. I swiped and I saw jank. I'm like, and you scrolling back and forth. I can just see frame drops. But it's beta 1. I'm like, okay, it's I didn't see an improvement. I'm like, okay, more of the same. But then I dug a little deeper. And, opened a few apps that I knew could be problematic, and scrolled. And while I did hit a few anomalies every so often, I can tell you with a great degree of assurance and certainty that whatever they've addressed in iOS 13 was the thing they've needed to address since iOS 7. There has been a dramatic improvement in animations, in fluidity, in overarching speed, responsiveness, by and large, with iOS 13 Beta 1, running on an iPhone 8 Plus. Which, for all intents and purposes, is a pretty modern device. I mean, it's only, 2 generations old or something like that? Not that old. Certainly not as old as me. So I was pleasantly surprised. Definitely hit a few hiccups, though, and immediately attributed those to beta. I can't pass final judgment, nor should anybody. But all indications seem to point to the problem, the underlying problem, finally being addressed. Because I have not seen any degree of performance improvements between maybe iOS 9 and 12. There's just none. There was none to be seen as far as I was concerned. And mind you, I'm not talking about layout inconsistencies. That's a different issue altogether. The performance, the raw performance of iOS 13 Beta 1 on this iPhone 8 Plus is impressive. It seriously, it impressed me. I was taken aback. Turned on dark mode. I think we all did. I guess Andrew called it a black mode. Dark mode. Fan of that. Seems to be well implemented. Even with the early beta, it shows a great degree of promise. I'm actually, I'm not saying I'm considering, upgrading or let's say flipping back to the iPhone. There's a lot more that has to be considered. Not just the operating system, not just the hardware. I mean, there are other shortcomings to it. The services and the not just the ecosystem, but everything that makes it a good overarching experience in comparison to the experience that I've had on the Pixel for the past couple years, which has been rock solid. There are a few things that I just couldn't go back to getting used to with iOS in its current state. In fact, a few weeks ago, the lead of for Siri basically came out and said that he didn't believe this type of software could do the kinds of things that it was purported to do. So if you've got a project lead not really believing that the underlying technology was even powerful enough to do the things that it was supposed to do, it didn't have, a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks. But that didn't surprise me. That makes, or goes into that overarching device experience, as with everything else. iOS 13 is finally a step in the right direction. I'm saying that this early on. That's what I've seen. That's what I feel. That's what I believe. And they would have to take some massive steps backwards from Beta 1 on to the gold build, the master RTM. But I'm taken aback. I've been waiting for this day for 7 years. And it's finally arrived. So with Jony Ive, right? Jony, he had his fingers in so many pots. And I'm not going to blame him for what happened with iOS. In my estimation, because some people said, "Oh, it's fine, great, knock yourself out." But I was personally compelled to look elsewhere 2 years ago. I just didn't think it was going to get better, and I'm not sure. It is. Now that I've experienced an alternative platform, really, to iOS. But Jony had a counterpart in Steve Jobs. And I think a lot of Jony and his value was lost when Steve Jobs was lost. Now, it's not a concern so much that Johnny's gone, because that's certainly, a potential problem, if you liked his style. The problem is he's not really being replaced. There's nobody, to my knowledge, who's effectively going to lead design. So you'll have designers reporting to teams that may not understand the value of design. And in my estimation, that's kind of what got us in this mess in the first place. And I'm not saying it was a rudderless ship. I think there's a lot of leadership from within. But in terms of a company that could produce what it produced under Steve Jobs, well, I'm glad they're paying attention to performance inside of iOS. And so whatever changes they feel are warranted, I'm along for the ride, like a lot of you. I'm hoping that they will take the feedback seriously. And it seems like they finally are. Not that they ever listened to me, but I'm hopeful. Not that there's going to be a better Apple without Jony. That's not really fair to say, because he made his mark. But I'm hopeful they can get back to where they were, in my mind. And I felt a lot of that has been lost. That's my belief. And mind you, I still buy Apple products. This keyboard, relatively new. I mean, it works. I like it, right? VT Production says, I want Apple to improve as I'm an Android guy. I like innovation and refinement, especially when Huawei is getting put under pressure by the U.S. More competition, the better for U.S. consumers. It's competition makes the marketplace move forward. So I've been looking for decent competition with software for the longest time, and I think it may finally be coming back into its own. And so that, to me, and we may not see the impact of Jony Ive leaving for another 5 years or so, but a lot can happen in between. I certainly hope that Apple listens to its designers, because that's part of the reason why I was won over so many years ago, and a large reason why ultimately I found a better experience for me in the Google Pixel series. Even if, for argument's sake, and I mentioned, as I kind of mentioned this, even if iOS came out perfectly polished, I still don't know if I'd flip back. I mean, Google's yet to release this year's flagship. We'll see. It's got a lot going for it. Sure, it's got things going against it, but you can't have it all. You kind of have to pick and choose. You got to go with what's going to work for you. And I think iOS 13 works for me at a fundamental level. And I don't feel, despite some glitchiness, I don't, and like I said, swiping and some animations, I'm like, it needs to be polished. It's beta 1. But I don't feel I don't feel icky. I think it's the best word to use. Like when I see frame drops and judder, because a lot of what I saw, even in the later builds of iOS 12, they're just not there in iOS 13. I'm telling you, they improved the underlying how animation was being handled, or the scheduler, or whatever they tweaked. They got to keep tweaking it. If anything would compel me to buy a newer iOS device, is seeing it in person and seeing it being a more fluid experience than the one I have in my hand. That would drive me. Although that said, I'm probably just as well served by my iPad, and this is a not latest gen iPad Pro, but most latest recent previous gen iPad Pro. Like the last one, it doesn't have a headphone jack on it. And it was brand new until they announced the new one like a couple of months ago. But I use this like constantly. Because it's lightweight, it's portable. It's not a huge screen, but it's a large screen enough. This is if I have a daily iOS device, it's in the iPad. Now, there are iPad improvements as well. But I haven't seen, despite some hang-ups I have with the iPad, as many dramatic problems with the iPad as I had with the iPhone and iOS. Could be because of the speed. The hardware was able to keep up with the software shortcomings. That said, sometimes I would see software shortcomings. I'm not going to load the beta onto the iPad. I'll probably wait till a final release before doing it, because I do rely on it as regularly as I do. So yeah, I don't really care much about the hardware. I care more about the software experience and the overarching experience. The hardware to me is along for the ride. Software, in my estimation, takes center stage. That's my choice. That's my opinion. That's why you don't hear me talking a lot about the hardware and what I might think about the hardware, because I don't think about the hardware. I rarely, if ever, do. But yeah, Jony Ive, I think, is it's interesting. Timing, I'm not going to say is eerie. I don't think it was premeditated or calculated. But I think you're going to see in the next 5 years, you're going to see a different Apple than you saw today. It's a prediction. You're going to see a different Apple than you saw back when iOS 6 ruled the roost. Apple's going to change. Now, here's the question. Is it going to change for the better or not? I don't know. I can tell you this, as a consumer, I want it to change for the better. I'm happy to keep giving them feedback, happy to help them fix something that needs to be fixed. I've always been a user advocate. Always. To the nth degree. To a maddening degree for some people. But I felt like, it wasn't where it needed to be. And honestly, in seeing what I see in iOS 13, I know I was right before. But now when I see dramatically better... If you don't see smoother scrolling, by and large, minus glitches, in iOS 13 compared to iOS 12... you never would have seen the problem. But if you're seeing that things are more fluid and not just responsive, just more fluid and less juddery in iOS 13, then you're speaking to the problem that I saw and now no longer see. I know what I saw. I know what I did. So anyway, I'm happy that they're going this way. I'm disappointed to see Jony Ive is going away. No one really likes change, but I'm hopeful that Apple will make some decisions that will be reflected in their products to the benefit of the people who want to use their products. Is that fair? I think it's fair. Like I said, I have my opinions. Everyone else got their opinions. You're welcome to have yours. I'll be fine. If you disagree with me, I'll be okay. I will survive. I'll be fine. Thank you. Just thought I'd share those thoughts because I know people are asking, hey, what do you think about iOS 13? So far, thumbs up for me. And those are my thoughts on Jony Ive as well. Just coincidental. Boy, 2-in-1. You got a twofer. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for the live broadcast. Oh, 3D printing with Heath. Don't worry about it. I know 3D printing with Heath, he's been amazing. He's a part of the live Star Wars Radar broadcast. I ended up broadcasting very late today. But the cool thing is Heath... I got to show everybody. I do have the phone tonight. I didn't have it yesterday in the broadcast to show everybody. But Heath has printed out this a rainbow Darth Vader. So he's done a rainbow and a gold one. So now we got a rainbow Vader that's on its way. Look, it matches the screensaver. Isn't that great? He 3D printed that. That's so cool. See, I'm a DI buyer. I'm not the DIYer. But anyway, so there's shout out 3D printing with Heath. Y'all need to follow him. I think he made a video I can upload to this channel too, of the actual printing process. Is that right? Is that how it's gonna go? We'll see. Metallica T says, scrolling YouTube comments on iOS 12 is a jittery nightmare. Smooth as butter on my Pixel 3a. Look forward to see what iOS 13 brings. Yeah, you know, that's the thing, is the scrolling perf is dramatically different between a Google Pixel 3 and an iOS 12 device. I don't know if I can necessarily compare the iOS 13 to a Google Pixel, because I'm not running the latest Android beta, on it. And honestly, I think that the iOS apps are optimized differently, because scrolling, even with apps on iOS, animations are snappier, animations are generally better. But yeah, like the Google apps, the scrolling performance, not that third-party apps, right? Not that great by comparison. You just learn to, you get accustomed to the way certain things work on any given platform, and you get used to fluidity, and it's a dramatic departure when you go back to something that just doesn't run as fluidly. That's the truth. So anyway, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's a valid perspective. I'm going to go ahead and leave everybody be. Like I said, this is kind of late, and I just kind of did it off the cuff. I was like, let's talk about Jony, and let's talk about iOS 13, kind of get them all mishmashed together. Kind of a departure from one of my more favorite topics as of, the past 46 years on the planet, Star Wars. Well, Star Wars hasn't been around for 46 years. I have. I'm older than Star Wars. It's true. Many people don't realize that. I'm older than Star Wars. Not by much, but I am. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats. It's pretty nice. I'm not going to start talking about Apple again. I don't really have that much to say. When I have something to say, I'll say it. I really don't have that much to say, which keeps me from saying anything. You know what I'm saying? It's not me. Not now. I have had some thoughts as the type of content that I think could be done that I'd like to do. It's probably tech related, not necessarily PC related, so there's no conflict of interest with Intel. I see, that's another thing. I got to be careful about that. Yeah, y'all know it's my opinion. Y'all know what I was saying years ago, and I'm sitting here telling you it's better. Yay, Apple. Good on. I'm so. I want. Thank you. Whoever made it happen. Thank you. I will no longer be a thorn in Apple's side. Well, for now. I can't. I'm not going to let them off the hook that easily. But I'll let you off the hook. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I do love you, and I appreciate you. I am trying to do a video every day. It may not be the type of video you want to watch, but I'm still here. At this point, however, I'm going to leave you to your own devices, and may the Force be with you always.